days off of work, and Laurie would call at lunchtime and say, how's it going? And I'd look at my computer screen and it was still blank. I don't know how you put in words a woman, 92 years, a woman like Mama. I mean, you just heard Marino when he came over, and you heard how she was for them. But that's probably the blessing. You know, no matter what words I did put down, it'll never be enough. And that's probably one of the blessings she left us. And anyone who knows her knows the last few years have been pretty tough for her. And it's amazing the way she dealt with that. She just woke up every day and tried to do the best she could. And I guess that's all we really do, all of us. But you know, when you saw her and you saw some of the things she dealt with, and just being able to move around the house, being a chore. You know, Jeffrey Holland once said that if the harder you try, the harder it gets. Take care, because the best people in the world have had that experience. And I think anybody that knew Mama would put her up there with some of the very, very best. She had a really unique way of uniting groups of people, sometimes friends, families, and even strangers. And what was neat about that is she made everybody feel important. Even if you weren't feeling important in your own home, with your own family, or in your own workplace, you could take a trip to Marcus Oak and you'd feel important all of a sudden. You'd go away from there feeling a little bit better than what you did when you went in. You know, how often do you think an elementary school principal and 3 and 4 people from that school district, from that school building, would go to the home of a cafeteria worker for a pasta dinner? Well, I can tell you, it was a weekly occurrence at 25 East 9th Street in Marcus Oak. I remember one night in particular, I was there on a Friday night, stopping down to see her, and Mr. Blanford was there. He was the school principal, and you know, I wasn't always the type of guy that saw school principals in the positive light, but Pop-Up was there. He said we were going to stay for dinner. There's about 3 or 4 teachers, I don't remember who they were, and just when Mama was getting ready to serve dinner, the door flies open. In comes Marguerite, Jerry, Dominic, Julio, and Aunt Pauline. Now, anybody that's ever been in a room or a house when Aunt Marguerite would walk in, it was an entrance. Everybody knew it. And I'm looking around the table, and these teacher friends of Mama, you should have seen their eyes. They're like this big, and everybody was looking around. And you know what? In 10 minutes, now the dining room table was set, somebody called Vesuvios, and that group of people didn't even know each other. Probably 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, they're still sitting around having a good time. That was sort of the story about Mama. What was amazing about that incident is that happened all the time with her. And more importantly, those connections were real. These were people that for the rest of her life felt comfortable enough to stop in wherever she was at. Brookhaven, White House Beach, it didn't matter. They joined her, they traveled the world with her on her trips. How many of us have had late night Bikino, Yahtzee, Uno? I don't think she ever had a bigger smile on her face than when she was sitting around her table with all of her grandkids playing a game of Uno Attack. Or how many times have we all heard, Mamma mia, I got the Yahtzee again. And she did. She'd be the only person that would get 5 Yahtzees in a game of Yahtzee. I don't know what she did. And it was funny, you'd get around her and Ozzy and they'd be playing dominoes, and I could guarantee you'd say, Teresa, a tile laid is a tile played. And then everybody would be rolling their eyes. And as much flack as she used to give me as a kid when I would go fishing at the point all day with Johnny and everybody, and I'd be down there all day, she'd come, you're not even eating lunch. Well, give her a clam rake and low tide and see when the next time you saw her. It'd be when the tide was high, you'd look out there, it'd be her neck in the top of the clam rake would be out there. Any of us that were blessed enough to go to the ocean swimming with her, you know, she had that patented side stroke well out beyond the lifeguard boundaries, and the lifeguard would be blowing and she would be waving. They thought they were waving at her. She didn't like swimming within the boundaries at the ocean. She said it was a little bit too close. She was probably the only woman I've ever met so far in my life, maybe in the world, that started cooking dinner while she was eating her breakfast. She would be having her coffee, toast and peanut butter, a little side of cantaloupe, and the potatoes would be boiling for her potato and tomato salad for a dinner time. I don't really know. She had a green thumb that grew fig trees and grapevines in the concrete jungle of Marcus Hook.
Right.
And if you saw her backyard, it was a concrete jungle. There was one little strip of grass that wasn't this big, but she had fig trees, she had grapevines. She would turn white rice, peas, and garlic into a gourmet side. And if you didn't watch closely and you bought bait to go crabbing, you might lose it to the roasting pan. So you had to keep a close eye on that stuff. Everything was important to her. I learned a long time ago not to ask, because her food was always amazing. Whatever it was, everybody enjoyed it. Even, I met my wife a long time ago. She was 16, and I said, whatever you do, don't ask. And she didn't come from that kind of family. Her family had the recipe, the Betty Crocker cookbook. She come to Mom's house, it was different. And I'm very, very thankful that I've spent personally so many hours with her one-on-one over a stove. She's been a really big influence in my life personally. As driving became more of an issue with her over the years, you had to be really careful taking her out. For a lot of reasons, but most importantly, if you happen to cruise within a 30-mile radius of a casino, a buffet, or a dollar store, you're going to get asked to make a pit stop. I remember many years ago, it was before Laurie and I were married, we were down the beach for Mom's birthday and mine. That was a pretty common occurrence. It was just Laurie and I were down there with Mom and Papa. And she decided that my birthday gift was her taking me to the Harrington Casino. Okay, so despite my best efforts, I tried to get Papa to go. He was having none of it. But he goes over and I see him whispering to Laurie, kissing her on the cheek. He goes, Dad, what's going on? He goes, he gave me $10 and said play this for him. So we get to the casino, we make the drive in, and Lord knows, Laurie and I, in about 35 minutes, we were out of whatever little bit of money we had back then. And we go looking for Mama, and we go around the corner. She's sitting at 3 machines. She's connected to these machines with wires going, I don't know, lanyards or something with cards going in. And she's got a bucket, and the quarters are falling out of the bucket. She's handing Laurie like this, handfuls of quarters. Laurie, play this for me, play this. She didn't know Laurie and I were cashing all those quarters in. We weren't playing anymore. I mean, it's kind of like one of the curses of going out with her, wherever it was, a buffet, a casino, you were there for the long haul. Don't make plans for later. So, at the end of the night, she comes, when she finally realizes that Laurie and I are sitting there, maybe looking like we weren't enjoying ourselves, but I don't think that was the case. And she gave that signature, what you gonna do? And we left. Before we left, we handed her $90, because that's what we were cashing in. You would have thought she just hit the $470 million Mega Millions jack. We had to stop at a dollar store on the way home. We had to stop at an ice cream parlor on the way home. And we got back to the trailer that night, and Laurie goes over and she gives Papa up. She says, hey, I paid you $10, and she hands him $40. He turned his Barbara Mandrell hat sideways so the brim didn't hit her, kissed her on the cheek, and said, you keep it, honey. That's what their life was about. Sometimes, for many of us, it didn't seem like there was a lot of love in that house. There's a lot of words I won't say right now because there's children in the presence, but there was a lot of love there. And she was a proud, confident woman who, for much of her life, demonstrated a level of independence that people weren't ready for. When she arrived here in America, she did everything she could to make the American dream come true for her and her family. She married a great, devoted husband. She learned the language. She secured employment. She volunteered in her community, owned a home, raised a family. And for a majority of her life, she drove herself wherever she wanted to go, whenever she wanted to go there. And if she wanted to go somewhere that was too far to drive, guess what? She found a plane, train, boat, or bus, and she went anyway. She didn't let anybody stop her. I really think that should serve as an inspiration for all of us today. We find ourselves, cornered between commitment and convenience. Sometimes not doing the things we want because it's easier to do the things that we can live with. She was always willing to share those experiences with anybody. She was an usher of sorts, an usher of firsts for many. For me personally, my first coach bus ride, my first train ride, my first Broadway musical, my first golf cart ride, my first casino trip, the first time I ate rabbit, First time I had quail that she raised in the backyard and cooked in the frying pan, right there in Arkansas.
It was named Joseph.
I think Tyler might have been the first human being ever when he was a baby to get her blessing to actually take a shower in the house and not in the bathhouse down the beach. I think Hunter was the first dog that was ever allowed to come in the house and didn't have to stay in the porch. And when I think about that, and me personally, you know, these are all my personal firsts, and I'm sure we all have them in the room. That's what the amazing part is about her. She did that for people, strangers, church people, school people. It didn't matter. If you wanted to go on a trip, if she had a seat, if you wanted to go on a trip and you didn't have the money, pay me what you can. Complete strangers. She always said to me, I think it was privately, that one of her proudest achievements was owning that home down the beach.
Uh-oh.